Part 42. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 414. Garen thought for a moment. He only has a few hundred golden will cloths on him now. If he wants to upgrade, let alone a few levels, he can't even level 1. And these are already the family's largest wealth. He also didn't expect the upgrade to be so expensive. Seeing Garen pondering, the child on the side tugged on his sleeve. Team leader, I still have some golden will cloth, which should be enough for you to upgrade. How about I lend it to you? You have? Garen was slightly surprised. Yes, after my mission is over, I take all the things I don't use and exchange them for money. I usually don't have much use for them. The child smiled, and Brick said directly to the waiter. My badge can be directly connected to the bank in the capital, and the upgrade money can be transferred directly from my badge. Garen was a little helpless. I didn't expect it to all depend on you. It's okay. I have no place to use the money anyway. I just keep saving it. The child didn't care. The waiter looked at the old man with the white beard. The old man nodded. Then what level does the guest need to upgrade to? Galleons are welcome too. Of course it would be best if it could be upgraded to the highest level. That's no problem, the old man replied affirmatively, but it will take some time. About how long? It will probably wait until the evening. We need to check the status of your shackles first, and then design the war shackles that fit perfectly. During this time, you need to pay some deposit first, and then we will notify you when the time comes. You can check it out at our have some fun and the time will fly by quickly. The waiter on the side immediately came forward to introduce him at the right time. We have a casino, a relaxation area, sandbox games, and a gambling area. 2 guests can choose whatever they want. There are many trained girls and boys in the relaxation area, which can fully meet the various needs of 2 people. The sandbox game is one of our unique games here. It uses the light of totem to simulate a huge sandbox, and guests can control the characters on it. Fights are carried out. The gambling area is a place for guests to resolve conflicts and also offers betting activities. Garen didn't expect there to be so many Taoist bars here. It seemed like a bar with a nice environment, but he didn't expect it to be very rich in content. It should be underground here, right? Yes, the waiter replied quickly. Garen paused. Forget it, I'll come over to pick it up later in the evening. I'll go do some errands first. That's fine, we'll be waiting for you 2 to come back at any time, the waiter replied respectfully. Garen left the bar with his child and waited for an ordinary carriage at the door. Go to number 128, Tanning Street, Yungang District. Okay. Galen handed over a silver will cloth, sat steadily and with the child in the back seat of the carriage, and looked at the surrounding neighborhood that slowly began to retreat. Where are we going now? The child asked at the side. You have nowhere to go anyway, just follow me. Garen smiled and answered casually. Okay. The child lowered his head, took out a piece of paper and a charcoal pencil from somewhere, and began to draw on it. The royal capital is divided into 3 regions. Palace District, Yungang District, Trade District. Yungang District is an area where non-commissioned officers and nobles live together. The royal palace area is the residence of the royal family with the royal palace as its core. The trade area is the trading and civilian residential area. Garen recalled the first person he met when he first came to this world. In the blink of an eye, so much time had passed. I couldn't help but feel a little enlightened. In Yungang District, in a 3-story white building on the roadside. Hathaway still has her golden ponytail tied up, her face remains as bare as ever, and her expression is solemn, giving people a serious and rigid look. She was kneeling on her single bed, carefully pasting a newly issued order on the wall beside her bed. The milky white underwear outlines her perfect and convex figure. Hathaway pursed her lips, put it on, pressed the tape tightly, stepped back and looked carefully, and found that it was a little crooked. Then he came forward and tore it off and put it back on again. She has always been serious about doing things. If something doesn't meet her standards, she will start over. The afternoon light slanted in through the window. It fell on the wooden floor beside the bed, reflecting a faint yellow light. Since Vindman Manor, she has returned to the royal capital and continued to assume her position as lieutenant of the royal guard. She is not a totem master and cannot go to the battlefield during wars. She can only maintain basic security and order in the royal capital. After the Battle of the Manor, Vindman died and the entire manor was destroyed. Since her cousin Garin came to the royal capital, she has been living in seclusion and has rarely contacted outsiders. Even she has not seen her increasingly mysterious cousin for a long time. "Sophie, are you okay yet?" A clear female voice came from outside the bedroom. "Isn't it just a captain's appointment? Even if it is lost in the archives bureau, it can be reissued. Why are you in such a hurry?" "It's almost ready," Hathaway responded loudly. "Where is your sister Danny?" the female voice asked. "I guess they went to the lake again. Some of their friends made an appointment to go out and relax." "You have really few relatives," the woman muttered in a low voice. Hathaway smiled slightly. Compared with her cousin's family, there was an extra layer between her and those relatives. In addition, her personality was very tactful and unlovable, so her relationship with many relatives gradually faded away. Now living alone, it seems as if the thrilling battle in the manor was like a dream, becoming more and more unreal and blurry. Life transitions peacefully day by day, as if it can continue like this until the end of life. Maybe this is okay. After all, that kind of life does not belong to ordinary people like us. She exhaled slightly and was about to turn over from the bed. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, a very rhythmic knocking sound. "Who?" Hathaway asked loudly. He hurriedly got out of bed, put on his royal guard uniform, and hurried to the door of the living room on the first floor. "I'll open the door." The female voice in front sounded again, followed by aggressive footsteps. Click. The door to the first floor was opened directly. Sylvia stared blankly at the two people at the door, confused for a moment. There were two men in black standing in front of the gate, wearing silky clothes that looked like cloaks. They seemed to be the uniforms of an organization. The collar was turned up high and embroidered with golden fleur-de-lis. The two people standing in front were extremely eye-catching. He has a handsome fair face, tassel-like blonde hair hanging on his shoulders, and the three red dots arranged in a triangle between his eyebrows look a bit eerie. A pair of crimson eyes can reflect your own face like a mirror. "Excuse me. Who are you looking for?" Sylvia asked in a low voice. The other child was simply ignored by her. "Is this Sophie Hathaway's residence?" the blonde man asked calmly. "Yes. That's right." The other party showed a smile, which made Sylvia blush and her heart beat. "I am her cousin, Galanteri Jones. I came here specifically to visit my cousin this time." "Cousin?" Sylvia opened her eyes wide. She seemed to have heard Sophie mention a cousin before, but then it gradually faded away from her words. As a colleague and friend, she rarely heard about her family from Sophie. "Sophie, your cousin is here. Come down and take a look." She simply turned around and shouted. Garin looked at the woman in front of him. He was no more than 23 or 24 years old, with long gray-brown hair tied into a ponytail, and he was wearing a silver personal armor specially designed for the royal guards. This kind of armor has no defensive capabilities and is just for decoration and beauty. It sticks closely to women's skin and can perfectly highlight the curves of the buttocks and legs. There are fine hollow patterns on it, as well as some decorative white crystal lines. The woman in front of me is obviously a colleague of my cousin. The royal guard is also divided into two parts. One part is just an honor guard. They are dressed majestic and beautiful, showing the royal style. The other part performs tasks in a formal and regular manner. Now apparently my cousin has also been transferred to serve in the honor guard. My cousin was also a mortal master who carried out dangerous missions many times and received secret astronomical orders. It was only after the turmoil broke out that ordinary people were of little use, so it is estimated that this changed. The woman in front of her was delicate looking, not very beautiful, but she was considered above average. The proportions of a pair of long legs are very conspicuous, round and slender, outlining the curves of the straight and tight hips. Although the skin is not very white, it has a beauty that is close to life. It's not as close to perfection as Gillis, but it gives people a sense of alienation. Excuse me, who are you? Oh, I'm Sylvia, Sophie's colleague and friend. Since you are Sophie's cousin, you should call me sister, right? Sylvia rolled her eyes and suddenly laughed. Garin and the child walked into the living room, and happened to see their cousin Sophie coming downstairs wearing the same silver hollow armor. Shia. The moment Sophie saw Garin, she immediately called out her previous name. There was a hint of worry in his eyes. Why did it take you so long to come see me? What happened? She is not a totem master, and her interpersonal relationship is not very good. She has no idea about the major events happening in the totem world, and naturally she does not know the current Galen. He is far from the weak cousin he was before. Sister Sophie. Where is Danny? Garin stepped forward and gave Sophie a heavy hug. The two walked to the red leather sofa in front of the fireplace and sat down. A green parrot kept in a silver birdcage next to it was jumping around and making strange cooing noises. Danny went out to play with some friends. If you come here in the morning, you can see Nazai. She is getting more and more crazy now, and I can't control her. Sophie Hathaway shook her head helplessly. Looking at her cousin in front of her, she finally let go of the worry she had been feeling. Although from her generation onwards, the Hathaway family will be just a branch of the Terry Jones family, gradually becoming estranged and separated. But if her uncle had not been taking care of her since she was a child, she would never have been able to become a lieutenant in the Royal Guard. He also dotes on the only heir to the Terry Jones family. I didn't even think about the changes in family relationships. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 415. I haven't seen that little guy Danny for a long time. It's a pity that I rarely have time to come here this time. Garin shook his head and said, forget it, I came here mainly to see how my cousin is doing and if there is anything. If you need help, just let me know. Sophie looked at the wayward little guy in front of her who had been disobedient. In the past, Ahaja was addicted to gambling and was obsessed with that bad woman Guy Lee. Unknowingly, the former bad boy has now matured and can independently support the entire Terry Jones family. I don't need any help here. It's not easy for you now either. The family's situation is not very optimistic, right? Garin touched his nose in embarrassment. The family situation is indeed not optimistic. He is the type who doesn't like to manage trivial matters and accidentally forgets about the family. I'm working on it, he replied in a lower voice. I believe you can do it. Sophie Hathaway patted Galen on the shoulder. Both of them selectively forgot about the embarrassing matter of their original engagement. Let me introduce, this is my sister's good friend Sylvia. Sophie Hathaway turned her attention to Sylvia who was waiting on the side. She is a little older than you, so you have to call her sister. Sister Sylvia. Garin didn't have the strong aura he had as a team leader at all, and he immediately shouted without any hindrance. The child watching on one side had his mouth open. Comparing the two contrasting images, he felt incredibly insane. As expected of Sophie's cousin, he is so beautiful. Sylvia generously approached Garin, walked around him, and looked at him carefully. Wow, you have a good figure. Nice muscles too. She reached out and squeezed Garin's arm without any scruples, and the texture of the muscles on it made her moan. Sophie shook her head and smiled helplessly at Garin. Okay Sylvia, Stop making trouble. This is my cousin Shia. Oh, his name has been changed now, called Garen. Garen looked at this long-legged beauty speechlessly, circling around him, as if he was sizing up a rare animal. Okay, okay, don't you have something else to do? Go and do your work. Sophie stopped her friend's increasingly unscrupulous movements. Go quickly. Sophie, don't you want good friends now that you have a cousin? Sylvia pretended to be pitiful that no one wanted her. Aren't you still going to work? Go quickly. Sophie couldn't help but pinch Sylvia gently. Ouch. It hurt. Sylvia was half pushed and half escorted out of the door by Sophie, and the living room became quiet. She turned around, and only then did she realize that there was a small man in black who looked like a child following Garen. The presence of this man in black was too weak, and he had been ignored by her unconsciously just now. Who is this? He is my colleague, and he works with me in the royal capital now, Garen introduced casually, without any intention of explaining more. The mysterious origin of the child is probably related to the involvement of the totem master. As an ordinary person, Sophie Hathaway is involved, which is not a good thing for her. Hathaway didn't ask any questions. Sit down and chat with Garen casually about recent experiences. Originally, she planned to ask Galen, but unexpectedly, Galen unknowingly tricked her into telling her about her recent experiences. After she returned to the royal capital, she continued to work in the royal guard. Recently, she was promoted to a captain for completing a mission. Life in ordinary times is mostly simple and abnormal. It's just that she has been spending so much time recently that Danny has been left unattended and has gone a little crazy, hanging out with some sleazy boys all day long. You have to help me train her. This girl won't even listen to me now. She had a fierce argument with me yesterday. It was because the pocket money given to her was not enough. Speaking of Donnie, Sophie said, frowned slightly. You guys have played together before, so she might listen to what you say. I can't help it. It's okay. Nizai is in the rebellious stage now. It will be good if she becomes sensible after a while. Wasn't it the same for me at the beginning? There are still many poems from that year at home for collection, Garen said with a smile. After chatting with my cousin, time passed little by little. It's a pity that my cousin doesn't have the qualifications of a totem master, and the transformation experiment has a high mortality rate, too much pain, and without peak secret weapon control. Even if it is transformed, it will only lead to the life of an ordinary cannon fodder. It is best to live peacefully as an ordinary person. Listening to my cousin talk about his life, it is stable and gentle. There are no fights, no plots. There are only a few small awkwardnesses and conflicts between relatives and friends in life. After a few days, it will be back to normal. Many times after working hard every day, my biggest wish is to have a delicious meal, then take a comfortable bath and have a good sleep. Such a warm life is infinitely better than being in the middle of a murderous plot at any time. As Garen listened to his cousin's interesting stories, he couldn't help but recall his own life on Earth. It was the same back then, just as ordinary and gentle. Sister Sophie, actually, I have something important to tell you when I come here this time. Is it important? Sophie blinked. If something big happens in the royal capital, I want you to go to this address as soon as possible. Garen took out the note he had written before and handed it to Sophie. Sophie took it and looked at it. By Fenglin Academy. Yes, Garen nodded solemnly. You must remember. If something goes wrong, take Danny here immediately. Looking at Garen's solemn explanation, Sophie seemed to understand the importance of this matter. He also nodded heavily. I understand, I will. By Fenglin Academy is one of the very few areas in the capital that has not fallen into turmoil, because its dean is one of the two Grand Dukes in the capital, by Ian's grandfather. He is one of the three most powerful men in the Kuwaitan Empire. If Avik is successfully assassinated, this will definitely be one of the places where there will be no chaos. There are more than 10 academies in the royal capital, large and small. Bifenglin Academy is not initially eye-catching, because no one knows that its dean is one of the Grand Dukes. The Academy's performance has always been very low-key, and even the Black Sky Society did not pay much attention to it. Here, no one would have thought that this academy would have an extremely powerful combined magic array. If my cousin is in trouble, go here and save her, the Garen clone to protect her. The main reason he came here this time was to explain this matter. It was getting dark. Sophie was busy cooking a sumptuous dinner to entertain Galleon, who came here once in a while. Some precious foie gras and bird breasts were placed on it. A large basin of fresh fish soup was also stewed. These are rare delicacies in the current capital where supplies are tight. There was also a large plate of chicken wedges surrounded by vegetables. This kind of meat is a mutated monster meat promoted by His Majesty. It is one of the few meats that everyone can eat. Do you want to try it? Sophie pinched a piece of golden muscle for Garen. Then he scooped another spoonful of thick black salad dressing and poured it on the chicken. Galen took a bite and found that it was indeed very delicious and tender, but the fragrance was too strong and slightly boring. Aren't you leaving some food for Danny? He glanced at the child who was eating delicious food. This guy's stomach seemed to be a bottomless pit. One forkful contained a large piece of meat, and it was eaten in just a few bites. However, Sophie didn't pay much attention to him. Obviously that weird non-existence ability comes into play again. I left some extra, it's okay, Sophie smiled. At this time, the sky gradually darkened. When the three of them were halfway through eating, there was a muffled sound from the door on the first floor, as if someone came in and closed the door. Sister! What smells so good? A crisp little girl's voice came up from downstairs. It's Danny, she's back, Sophie frowned. You have to talk to me about her. If you continue like this, I'm afraid she will go astray. Okay. Leave it to me. I haven't seen her for a long time. It was rare for Garen to enjoy such a peaceful life, and he felt completely relaxed without realizing it. He had a feeling that he didn't want to disturb the tranquility. Soon, a girl with black shawl hair walked upstairs. The girl was about 18 or 19 years old. She was wearing a tight-fitting short white shirt that exposed her navel and ultra-short black leather pants, revealing a pair of fair and slender legs. Originally, this outfit was just a little bit spicy, nothing like that. But after being transformed by this girl, his temperament completely changed. The long sleeve of her shirt on the left side was cut off, revealing her fair arm, which even had a complex black magic rune tattooed on it. This rune does not have any totem light fluctuations, and it is obviously just a simple imitation tattoo. The girl's pretty little face is painted with some heavy makeup, giving her a much more mature look. The 5 fingers of his right hand were all wearing fake ruby rings. The rings were obviously runes that imitated magic spells, and were engraved with many strange and beautiful patterns. There were also patterns that even Garen didn't recognize. It was obviously just a random design by small businessmen to increase the sense of weirdness. The girl rushed upstairs, wearing a pair of black leather short boots, and immediately saw 2 more people at the dining table. The child was unconsciously ignored by her, and her eyes immediately fell directly on Garen. Ahashia. Call me brother. Sophie suddenly became serious. Brother, what kind of brother? Aren't you just a little older than me? Sister, I have no money, give me some pocket money. Danny put aside the last words, walked to Sophie and stretched out her hand. No, Sophie turned her head and ignored her. I just gave you 50 pieces of silver wheel cloth yesterday, and you spent it all so quickly. 50 silver wheel cloths are equivalent to 500 bronze wheel cloths. In the current royal capital, about 1,000 silver wheel cloths are equivalent to 1 golden wheel cloth. For a totem master, it is nothing at all. But for ordinary people, 50 silver rounds of cloth is enough to cover a month's expenses for a family of 3. Garin did some calculations in his mind, and it was roughly equivalent to about 500 to 800 in Earth time. For a child, this money was spent in one day. No wonder even my cousin from a high-income family was angry. Isn't it just a small amount of money? Raphael can use 300 pieces of silver wool cloth every week. Donnie became impatient. Sister, are you going to give it to me or not? No, Sophie replied coldly. If you dare to steal things from home and sell them again, see if I don't break your legs. Her voice raised an octave. Then just interrupt and try, Danny yelled without showing any signs of weakness. Okay, it's just a small amount of money, there's no need to cause conflicts between the sisters. A 100 silver wool cloth note was gently placed on Danny's hand. Garin added with a smile. Wow, Danny whistled, okay, Shia, I haven't seen you for so long, and now you are rich. She flicked the bank notes, and her mood suddenly felt better. Sophie on the side was about to speak when she saw Garin wink at her, meaning that he would handle everything. In desperation, she couldn't say much. It just so happens that it's almost getting dark. I still have some things to deal with. I'll see Sister Sophie next time. Garin stood up and said gently. Okay, come and sit down if you have time. You are always welcome here. Sophie nodded and stood up. Galen and the child were sent downstairs by Sophie. As soon as they walked out of the front yard of the small building, unexpectedly Danny Hathaway also ran out. The little girl rolled her eyes. I'll send them off. Sophie was slightly stunned, as if she didn't expect her sister to be so sensible. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Danny running towards the direction Garin left. After thinking about it, Sophie immediately understood what this girl was thinking. This guy must have snared Garin as a rich man. She was immediately furious and wanted to chase him, but thinking of Garin's last look, it seemed that he had some ideas, so she hesitated. Forget it, let's see what Shia can do. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 416. On the dim street, Garin and the child were walking in front. When they were about to get into a carriage, they heard a rush of footsteps behind them. Danny Hathaway is trotting over here. The little guy quickly ran in front of Garin and the other two, bending down and breathing heavily. We haven't seen you for so long, Shia, why are you running away in such a hurry? Why don't you come and have some fun with me? She calmed down and asked with a grand invitation. It's rare to be bored on weekdays, and finally a companion from the past showed up, and he seemed to be quite wealthy. Money was tight recently, so just a little coaxing would probably make a lot of money. Donnie had been having a serious dispute with her sister recently, and she was not willing to let go of this opportunity. Since the turmoil started, she had vaguely heard her sister talk about something bad happening at Vindman Manor, but she didn't have much contact with that uncle's family, and her sister usually went there often. I didn't feel much at all, I just had a slight impression of Shia whom I played with when I was a child, but I quickly put it behind me. It is extremely safe in the imperial capital, but more and more refugees are arriving due to the turmoil. But there is still peace and tranquility. Danny had also heard how ferocious the monsters outside were, and that most people would be cut into pieces and eaten as soon as they went out. But she had never seen what the monsters out there looked like. Now I met Garin who came back from outside, and I suddenly became interested. Garin glanced at Danny, then turned back to the child. You go back first, I will come to the War Guild to find you later. Okay. I happen to be hungry too, the child responded honestly. After paying the driver the fare, the carriage gradually disappeared into the night mist. Garin then turned back to Danny. Okay, I have something to do later, so I can stay with you for a while, but only for a while. I know, Dani rolled her eyes and reached out to hold Garen's arm. I'll take you to see some nice places. What a good place. Garen also promised his cousin that he would give Dani a good lesson, so he followed her words. Just go. Dani pulled Garen and stopped another carriage. The two of them rushed directly towards the edge of Yungang district and trade zone. Amidst the loud music, two women in blood-red clothes were twisting crazily on the stage. A large number of people below raised their arms and cheered and shouted, and from time to time, flowers and banknotes were thrown onto the stage. This is a bar. It is located on the edge between the trade district and Yungang district. It is very large and the customers inside are all young people. Most of them were dressed up in such a way that no one could recognize them. A band that looks similar to the non-mainstream Shamate is standing in a corner and playing various instruments crazily. There are 3 oval bar counters on the wall in front of the door, and the bartenders inside are all handsome and beautiful young men and women, mixing various drinks for the guests at the bar in a fancy way. Garen was leaning in front of the innermost bar, looking at the crazy crowd on the dance floor. He was originally worried that someone would recognize him in this uniform, but what he didn't expect was that there were a lot of gorgeous and cold clothes here. Those from the royal guards, the royal palace guards, army generals, totem masters, and workshop masters, and many other services that were obviously deliberately altered. The people wearing these clothes were all imitations of ordinary fabrics. If it weren't for the slight fluctuation of totem light, Garen would have thought that so many people of various identities had actually arrived. But upon closer inspection, I discovered that these were all fakes. Although this bar is lively, it is obviously too low level. If you really count, there are definitely a lot of young totem masters in the imperial capital, but their entertainment venues are definitely not of this level. Garen scanned the crowd for a long time, and barely saw the presence of single-digit young totem masters. They were all the best in the crowd, both men and women, and they were surrounded by a circle of men and women. Although these people are just one type of totem masters, it is obvious that most of the guests here are from not very good families. It is simply a place for ordinary people without qualifications to vent their madness. In this period of great turmoil, the status of ordinary people who have no power to resist has declined significantly, while the power and status of totem masters has significantly increased. In this extremely repressive environment for ordinary people, everyone needs to vent. So these places came into being, with various uniforms and various costumes, allowing guests to satisfy a false sense of vanity that they have become a privileged class. That's why people here wear very heavy makeup to prevent acquaintances from recognizing them. When Garen came to this world, it was his first time to come to such a place where ordinary people could interact. Both the former Ahashia and the current Garen were in the privileged class of this world from the beginning, with a noble status. The places where they played had been cleared in advance. As the son of a territorial noble viscount, Ahashia's status is actually equivalent to that of the son of a high-ranking official in China on Earth. How can it be compared to ordinary civilians? There are many big businessmen and small nobles who fawn over him on weekdays. There was no way he could be allowed to play in a place of this level. And now Garen has been promoted to the 4th type of peak totem master, and his actual combat power has reached the average type 5. This is a very important figure in the entire empire. That is to say, the top level of the 3 major institutions and the top level of Khawatan can compare with him. In terms of status on Earth, it would be equivalent to the influence of high-ranking officials. But the special nature of his identity allowed him to remain hidden, not known to the general public. Leaning on the white bar, Garen lazily drank the purple wine in his hand, with large and small pink bubbles still rising in the wine. In such a place, Garen's somewhat peculiar appearance became completely inconspicuous. There were 4 or 5 people around with various ornate symbols tattooed on their eyebrows. There were also many people with strange earrings hanging from their ears and silver ornaments on their eyelids. It's just that there are very few people with a calm face like him and no makeup on their faces at all. Garen was just dragged over by Dani, and then watched Dani sneak into the dance floor and go to find her gang of friends. "Hey handsome guy." Alone, a long-haired beauty with purple eyeshadow came over, holding a glass of transparent white wine, and raised a charming look at Garen. "This is just an ordinary person." Garen only glanced at the other party and lost interest. "Sorry, I have a companion," he replied politely. The other person's face was a little stunned, as if he didn't expect that he would be rejected even if he took the initiative to strike up a conversation. Walked away somewhat angrily. If it weren't for Dani, Garen wouldn't have come here to waste time. Although the life of ordinary people here made him feel fresh, that was all. With his status and strength, getting involved in these people's lives would not be a good thing for them or himself. Watching Dani twisting around on the dance floor like a little lunatic, fortunately, the place she was in was full of girls. This little girl was also very good at protecting herself, so she didn't get taken advantage of by anyone. Otherwise, Garen really wouldn't be able to explain to his cousin. While drinking wine, they waited quietly for Dani to play with her friends. "Dani, is that guy really rich?" a little girl with short purple hair asked in a low voice in Dani's ear. "Of course, haven't you noticed that the materials of his clothes are not ordinary? Let me tell you, just that set of clothes alone must be at least this number." Dani showed her 4 little fingers skillfully. 400 silver rounds of cloth. The little girl was only 13 or 14 years old. Her face was covered with thick white powder, and her eye circles were painted into 2 black patches. She looked like a panda. What is speechless is that she seems to be extremely satisfied with her creativity. At this time, she covered her mouth in surprise and shouted softly, 400? It's 4,000, Dani smiled proudly. Several boys and girls around also showed surprised eyes. 4,000? Oh my God, if you sell me, maybe my family won't pay so much money to redeem me. 4,000 pieces of silver wool cloth are enough for me to have a year's pocket money. Where did you catch such a rich and handsome guy? Dani, I envy you so much. Isn't that richer than my cousin? The envious and jealous looks from each of her companions greatly satisfied Dani's vanity. She secretly glanced at Garen in the distance. It has to be said that in this chaotic environment, Galen slowly drank purple wine with a lazy look on his face, his long golden hair slightly falling from his shoulders, casually scattered on the bar, matching his handsome appearance and delicate skin. Upon closer inspection, it seems to be completely disconnected from the entire environment, giving people a sense of tranquility and peace. My cousin said it. He paid for all our expenses today. Dani waved her little hand proudly. Oh yeah, a group of young children suddenly cheered. Dani glanced in the direction of Gallian again with some guilt, just in time to see him holding up the wine glass and seeming to observe the gorgeous color of the wine inside. Garen seemed to notice his sneak peek, put down the cup and smiled at this side. Dani felt even more guilty. In the corner of the bar, 2 girls who were completely out of tune with their surroundings were sitting. The place they were in was a separate single room with transparent glass walls. The sound insulation effect inside is good, and the glass wall is single-sided, so you can only see the outside from the inside, but not the inside. Each of the 2 girls wore a black waist skirt, which highlighted their tall and beautiful figures. Their appearance was not bad either, and they were considered beauties. The other person had drunken eyes and was wearing tight pale white trousers that tightly wrapped his slender legs, revealing the perfect waist and hip line. He was wearing a black and tight-fitting vest, and his dark shawl hair was scattered on the table with the owner's head. 2 delicate light gold earrings are faintly exposed in her hair. My head hurts, the black-haired girl moaned. Who told you to drink so much? The 2 of them often come to this bar. Although the environment here is a bit noisy, the standard of bartending inside is very high, which is not what other bars have. At first, they came here quietly to protect the safety of their two younger sisters. Unexpectedly, they gradually became accustomed to drinking here. They are already familiar with each other. Whenever they have any worries or stress, they will come here to gather and relax and vent. But it tastes good, the black-haired girl replied with a drunken look. Forget it, pay attention to yourself. Those little guys started making noise again. The girl in the black skirt shook her head and looked back towards the dance floor. Danny, the girl with panda makeup, and another girl with black hair in a black mini skirt, the three of them swayed their waists skillfully on the dance floor. Their faces were flushed, and they looked like they had drunk a lot of wine. It seems that little Danny has family members coming with her. Nini, would you like to go over and get to know him? The girl in the black dress asked in a low voice. Okay, the black-haired girl slowly stood up from the table and shook her head. If there is an emergency in the future and we can't come, we can also ask someone to help take care of those two little lunatics. The two of them got up, and the girl called Nini went to wash her face and sober up, and then they walked around the edge of the dance floor and walked towards Garen at the bar. When the two came to Garen, another woman who thought she was beautiful was rejected by Garen and left with an uncomfortable look on her face. During this time, 5 women who considered themselves excellent have been rejected by Garen. If you are trying to strike up a conversation, please turn to the right. Garen's faint voice came directly to him. The two of them immediately smiled. Before they could speak, the other party started to flirt casually. I'm sorry, we didn't come here to chat with you. Nini tidied up her long and messy hair. Are you Donnie's parent? We are also the parents of Donnie's friends. The purpose of coming here is actually the same as yours. He also came here to guard his children. Garen then glanced at these two people with a slightly serious expression. I'm sorry, I wrongly blamed you just now. He showed a hint of apology and stretched out his hand to shake hands with the two of them. My name is Nini. I am Char's sister, the youngest one. Her name is Dylan, and she is the sister of the purple-haired girl with dark circles under her eyes. Nini introduced herself. Nice to meet two beauties. Garen smiled. My name is Garen, and I am Danny's cousin. Feel the same. The three of them sat down next to each other and asked the bartender for 3 drinks of their choice. While guarding the little guys on the dance floor, they chatted casually. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 417. Galen also learned from the two people that they worked in the Taxation Bureau and Water Conservancy Bureau respectively. The Water Conservancy Bureau where Nini works is in the neighborhood facing the palace. Many of the chat topics involved noble officials coming in and out of the palace. Speaking of which, I saw the princess's car leaving the main hall this morning and going to the side hall. I used to see the princess's guards enjoying the flowers from a distance, but now I haven't seen them for a long time, Nini said casually. Garen frowned slightly. The eldest princess left the main palace today. It's Saturday. Isn't it the day after tomorrow that the ceremony will be held? You also know. Nini glanced at Garen in surprise. He only said that he also worked in the imperial capital, but the nature of his work needed to be kept secret and could not be disclosed. I didn't expect him to know this detail. Although under normal circumstances, preparations for any large-scale ceremony should not be completed until at least the day before the ceremony, but there may be some changes. The princess has many things to do, and she needs to deal with many things, Nini said casually. If I hadn't discovered the patterns of the princess's guards' movements, I might not have discovered this anomaly. Speaking of which, I also heard people say that the eldest princess did indeed leave the main hall early. Another person, Dylan, echoed. Galen didn't think much about it at first, but when he heard Dylan say the word advance, a guess suddenly came to his mind. The trust ceremony is so important, is it possible for Avik to perform it privately in advance? To avoid being disturbed by outsiders? In this way, as long as the official ceremony comes, it will be enough. The ceremony has been completed in advance, and there is no need to worry about possible damage. The more Garen thought about it, the more likely it seemed. If this possibility really exists, then Black Sky Society's assassination operation will most likely be brought forward. He was slightly startled. Although I don't have a good impression of Avik, I don't have any bad feelings either. The main reason is that if the ritual is really completed in advance, or even the assassination is carried out, it will be very detrimental to the situation, and the Black Sky Society will be in a situation where one step is the first and every step is the first. When he thought of this, he couldn't sit still. Glancing at Danny and others in the distance, he slowly stood up. Sorry, I suddenly thought of something urgent. It's okay, please do it. The two of them were slightly stunned and didn't care. They politely said that they would take good care of Donnie and the others. After paying the bill in advance for Danny and others, Garen walked out of the bar and looked back at the name of the bar, Du Bar. He immediately took a carriage and rushed to the War Guild. Disciplining Danny still requires a day or two of understanding and contact, but this matter cannot be delayed. He had to get ready as soon as possible. War Guild. It's still the Kite Tide Bar. As soon as Garen entered, a waiter in black came up to guide him. The two walked through the aisles and many sofa rooms, and walked into a small passage inside. There are rows of individual private rooms in the passage. After knocking open a private room in the middle, a child dressed in black and two others were sitting inside. One of them is a beautiful woman with short blonde hair. She is dressed very hotly. Her white short skirt almost reaches the top of her thighs. But at this time, she is directly ignored by the child, with an extremely embarrassed expression. The other person was the old workshop master from before. He was holding a black box in his hand and frowning, not knowing what he was thinking. Here we come. When the child saw Garen entering the door, he immediately smiled. Well, everything is ready. Garen looked at the black box in the old man's hand. Of course, with two masters doing it themselves, there will never be any problems. The old man stroked his beard and smiled. He stood up and handed the black box to Garen. Just press it directly on your previous shackle mark. Garen nodded and opened the box. Inside was a diamond-shaped white and silver metal hollow ornament. Faintly, he could hear the footsteps gradually getting closer and closer between the door and the outside. They were obviously people used to protect this transaction. Even the War Guild has to pay attention to such a top-notch item worth tens of millions. This place is not as short of manpower as there is in Titan City. He picked up the ornament, gently rolled up his sleeves, and decisively pressed it on the previous mark of the war shackles. Something strange happened. The ornament quickly turned into a liquid, slowly melting into Garen's skin and blending into the mark of the war shackles on his arm. Garen glanced at his attribute column and saw subtle changes. Shackles of War. Effect 1, Eye of Isaiah. Effect 2, none. Effect 3, none. Effect 4, none. Effect 5, none. Effect 6, none. Effect 7, none. Effect 8, none. Shared by Angel. A total of 8 techniques. Are you satisfied? The old man asked with a smile. Satisfied, very satisfied, Garen nodded. There should be fixed techniques for sale here, right? Can you choose one? Of course, please come with me. The old man nodded, and you could tell from his face that he was in a very comfortable mood now. It is rare for someone to upgrade war shackles so much at once and purchase the solidification spell, which will also give him a huge commission. Garen and the child followed the old man out of the private room and continued to move deeper into the passage. Under the protection of a group of black-clothed totem masters, they came to the end wall of the passage. The old man stretched out his hand and slapped it on the wall, and a white light flashed in his palm. The wall suddenly rippled and disappeared directly in front of everyone's eyes. Garen remained calm and followed the old man into the hall behind the wall with the child. This dark brown hall is circular in shape, with a circle of circular glass display cabinets lining the walls and a cylindrical glass column booth in the center. In these glass display cabinets, there are sparsely placed strange objects, none of which are very big. There are things like small boxes, living bodies with strange biological tissues, and even ordinary objects that look like minerals. There were also 3 groups of people standing sparsely in the hall. It seemed that they were all guild customers who were brought in by the guild members to choose the solidification spell just like them. This is the exhibition hall for solidification techniques. You can tell me what you like directly, the old man explained with a smile. I can provide you with up to 20% off the price. Thank you very much, Garen smiled slightly. Kid, do you have enough money there? No problem, the child responded nonchalantly. Just think, I borrowed it from you first, and I will return it to you after a while this time, thanks to the child, otherwise the upgrade of the war shackles would be really troublesome. It's nothing, I don't know how to use the money. The child obviously really didn't care. Garen nodded and stopped being pretentious. He walked to the counter and began to look at each one carefully. This place is truly worthy of being a guild in the imperial capital of a great country. Unlike Titan City, where there are only a few choices for solidification spells, here they are openly put out for everyone to choose from. At a glance, there are no less than 30 items. Garen followed the counters and checked them one by one. The curing techniques here are divided into 3 categories. Strengthen the ontology class, strengthen the totem class, and special class. Strengthening the body is the strengthening of the totem master himself. This strengthening can affect the speed and power of the totem master's spells, or the flexibility of controlling the totem in battle, etc. Strengthening a totem is a direct and temporary strengthening of a single totem. The last special category has the most, including medical, reconnaissance, night vision, underwater breathing, levitation, camouflage, freezing, etc. These are equivalent to giving the totem an additional ability. Garen looked around but couldn't find the technique he wanted. Although he knew that the Eye of Esek he found was not an ordinary magic spell, but none of these solidification spells had anything to do with it, Garen finally felt a little disappointed. Looking at the price tag, each of these solidification techniques is worth tens of thousands of gold wheel cloth, which is at least the price of tens of millions of copper wheel cloth. 2 or 3 sets are equivalent to the price of purchasing a basic set of first-level war shackles. Seemingly seeing a hint of disappointment on Garen's face, the old man pondered for a moment. Well, in addition to our guild's own solidification spells, there are also some solidification spells that we plan to put up for auction. You can take a look at them in advance to see if there is anything you want. That's okay, Garen nodded. The child simply told him through the black box on his collar that he had all his savings, which was about 20,000 gold wheel cloths. This amount plus the previous 80,000 gold wheel cloths spent on upgrading to the 4th level amounted to a total of 100,000 gold wheel cloths. This is a huge sum of money. Now even if the entire Terry Jones family sells all their properties, they will only get 40,000 to 50,000 gold wheels and cloth at most. This includes all fixed properties and real estate granted by His Majesty the Emperor, etc., all added up. Garen felt a little sorry that he had spent so much money on a child this time, but thinking that now was a critical period, he couldn't care so much. There will be plenty of opportunities to repay this love in the future. After waiting in the hall for a while, the old man asked someone to bring him a list and handed it to Garen. The detailed information of 5 solidification techniques is recorded on the list, which is obviously auction information. The first of these 5 solidification techniques is to imitate the hand of Dara. The shape is a golden palm-shaped necklace pendant. There is no special pattern on it. The effect is simple. Goldenization, spending a certain amount of totem light or totem power, can convert a certain amount of matter into gold. Although gold is not as valuable as silver in this world, it is also an important precious metal second only to silver. I believe that many totem masters will like this thing, but galleons are definitely not included. The second one is called dark blue chain. It's the same necklace style, all dark blue, with a white irregular stone hanging in the middle. The effect of the dark blue necklace is a water mist field, which can form a water mist area with a radius of 12 meters after being released, blocking the enemy's sight. The concentration of water mist increases or decreases with the strength of the totem master. The third one is called the void metal. Seeing this, Garen became slightly interested. This is just a black flame-like picture. The effect belongs to the enhanced body type. After being activated, part of the totem master's body can be elementalized. If the totem master's level is strong enough and high enough, it can be used to avoid fatal attacks and can also be used for long-distance teleportation. Of course, if you are just a low-level totem master, elementalizing one nail is considered good. The fourth and fifth were both strengthening spells for totems. Garen glanced at them. One had a strong healing effect, and the other added a cold attribute to the totem, which could damage the enemy totem. The cold damage is just much more powerful than the general enhanced spells. How do you sell this virtualization metal? Garen asked, pointing to the third solidification technique. Your vision is indeed sharp, the old man gave a thumbs up. This void metal was snatched from the Black Sky Society by the masters of our guild in a monster lair. For this metal, 2 Type 2 elite totem masters were seriously injured. Although for high-level totem masters, elementalization is an inevitable path to improvement, but being able to use solidification techniques to master this method in advance, doesn't it provide an extra guarantee for one's own safety? Stop talking nonsense, just tell me how much it will cost. Garen was too lazy to listen to his nonsense. This number, the old man held out 4 fingers. This is the 20% discount price I'm giving you too. 40,000 golden wheel cloth. Garen raised his eyebrows. He bought this mainly for the sake of elementalization. Elementalization is a short-term ability that orthodox totem masters can achieve when they become spiritual. But the path Garen took did not touch the edge of elementalization at all. Although the 9-headed demonic dragon is powerful, it is completely clueless in terms of elementalization, especially the elementalization of its own body. Perhaps through this thing, we can get a glimpse of the secrets of elementalization by high-level totem masters. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 418. The child's golden wheel cloth only has 20,000 UN left, which may not be enough to buy this thing. Garen pondered for a moment. Forget it for now, I'll wait until I raise enough money. Elemental things are good, but that doesn't mean they're the only ones here. Garen's main worry is that after the assassination begins, the imperial capital will be in chaos. If the war guild is also affected and cannot provide upgraded war shackles, it will be really troublesome. The old man was also slightly disappointed, but he showed no trace of betrayal. That's okay. Since the customer doesn't have enough funds, it's okay to wait until later to buy it. We have a stable and long-term supply source for such virtual metals, and I believe you won't be disappointed. Oh? Can it be imitated? Garen's eyes lit up. The old man smiled and said nothing. In this case, let's take our leave first. Garen thought for a while and then planned to leave. I'll send the guests out. Deep inside the palace, Lucy was wearing a dark red slim-fitting dress, sitting quietly on the princess's seat, holding her chin in one hand, her eyes blurred and she didn't know what she was thinking. The hall was dark, there was no lamp, only a black shadow faintly flowing in the corner. The cold moonlight came in from outside the door and fell on the ground in the middle of the hall. How is the situation? Lucy's lips moved slightly, but her voice was whispered into the shadows in the corner. The Minister of Defense is fixing the loopholes in the Air Defense Bureau and will not be back before tomorrow morning. Something happened to the disciple of Captain Aiden and he went to deal with it. Now that person is the only one left. Next to Ivik, a high-pitched voice, it came from a dark corner. Are everything ready? Delucy said calmly. Everything is fine. As long as we succeed, all exit routes will be completely activated. You will be able to evacuate the royal capital within 5 minutes. Delucy nodded. Where are the 3 generals of Vesca's Tooth Dragon? Went with the Minister of Defense. In other words, apart from the defensive forces of the 3 major agencies on the periphery, there are no top totem masters at the core of the palace. That's natural. That's good. Delucy nodded with satisfaction. Looking at the moon-white halo on the ground, there was a faint flash of Vesca's prim and serious face in her eyes. Vesca, we have been fighting for so long. This time, I want to see how you end it. A proud smile appeared at the corner of her mouth involuntarily. Garen walked out of the guild with the child. The more he thought about it, the more likely he was to assassinate him. He didn't care about anything else. He didn't even have time to wait for Angel at the guild, so he went straight to the palace area. There are many experts gathered in the entire royal capital, but there are at most only a few people who can be stronger than him. This was so that as soon as he arrived at the entrance of the palace, he was stopped by several elite guards. These people were obviously waiting for him. It's so late. I wonder why Viscount Garon came to the palace. The team was led by a man covered in white armor. His face was even wrapped in a white helmet. His voice was dull. Through the gap in the helmet, you could see a pair of shining eyes. Garen stood in front of the entrance to the palace. Behind him was the audience area that only nobles could enter. There were basically no outsiders, and they were all guarded and cleared by guards. He glanced at the white-armored guard in front of him. A slight smile on his face. His Majesty once promised me a set of Storm Black Dove Totem inheritance, but unfortunately I never had time to go to the palace warehouse to get it. Today I suddenly remembered it, so I came over to get it back. Storm Black Dove, a trace of envy flashed in the guard captain's eyes. He had also heard about this reward, which was one of the few generous rewards His Majesty had given to the totem inheritance in recent years. So that's it, then please forgive me for the offense. It doesn't matter. Garen nodded. He looked back at the child. Are you coming with me, or are you? Before the child came, Galleon had warned him that this time might be a bit dangerous. If Garen said there was danger in his tone, it might be a huge crisis for him. So he shook his head without any show of force. I'll wait for you outside. No, you go back to the agency headquarters and wait for news from me. Garen smiled and whispered. Although the child didn't know why he arranged it like this, he still nodded seriously and turned around and left without hesitation. Garen looked around. It is surrounded by tall black and grey stone buildings. The stone walls of the palace wrap up the place, forming a small square in a depression. Rows of white armored guards stood on both sides of the square. But for some reason, when Garen looked at these guards, he always felt that the situation was a little different than usual. But I can't tell specifically what the difference is. Under the leadership of the white armored guards, he walked directly in from the main entrance of the palace. Passed through the black corridors and crossed 2 black stone halls. It can be seen that the guards in the hall are also much sparser. Not far away, he saw a black heavy armored swordsman running towards him from behind with heavy footsteps. Your Majesty, Viscount Galen, Your Majesty is watching the strength competition in the Habo Palace. Please come and visit with us. Strength competition. Garen was slightly startled, knowing what kind of competition this was. There is not much entertainment inside the palace, and Avik is an extremely martial emperor, so he created an internal ranking competition. All ministers and family members, including children of the royal family, must participate in this internal competition to exclude Kuwait from the Silver Palace. Top 100. Of course, this ranking does not include actual combat experience, it is just a competition. Similar to sports activities. Those who enter the top 100 will be awarded the title of Silver Palace Silver Wing Master. Garin did not expect that tonight, instead of holding a ceremony in advance, an internal Silver Palace qualifying match would be held. It just so happens that I haven't seen the Silver Palace game either, Garin agreed happily. Along with the black armored guards, Garin turned and walked toward the other side of the passage. After passing through an open-air corridor, a spacious and huge white stone square suddenly appeared in front. In the middle of the square, a square-high platform was built, on which two giant beasts were colliding crazily, one bear and one tiger, one black and one gold. The two giant beasts roared wildly. The black bear was extremely fast, but the golden tiger was in decline. From time to time, he wanted to light up the golden halo in his mouth, but was interrupted every time by the black bear's palm. Two young men in rich attire stood behind the two totem beasts, one with a proud face and the other with a pale face. Obviously the winner is about to be decided. The high platform is surrounded by a circle of black armored guards, and a group of people wearing white clothes surround Iwek and sit on another platform parallel to the high platform, watching the competition on the stage from a distance. Avik is surrounded by mostly aristocratic children and royal princes dressed in white attire. But the ones closest to him were the princesses wearing white lace dresses. The youngest princess was sitting on Iwek's lap, gently held in his arms, looking attentively at the competition on the high platform. There were also several people wearing clothes of different colors, also in aristocratic style. They were obviously from outside the royal family like Garin. These people are all young and look extremely immature. Viscount Terry Jones is here. A maid shouted loudly. Most of the people watching the battle immediately turned their heads and looked in the direction Garin was walking from. Most of the royal family members had faint curiosity and fear in their eyes. Several young men were seriously jealous. Haha, Galen is here, Avik stood up and waved to Galen. It just so happens that the Silver Palace qualifying competition starts not long ago. Do you want to give it a try too? There are so many masters in the Silver Palace, but I am afraid that I am not strong enough, Garin responded modestly. Under the leadership of the maid, she actually walked to sit next to Iwek. You are too modest, Avik patted Galen on the shoulder to show affection. You may as well come and accompany me to see the strength of the young people running for the Silver Palace this year. You can also be a judge and give scores. Score. There were 4 princes and 6 princesses around. Although the eldest princess was not there, the second princess and the 4th princess, 2 equally favored princesses, were also there. At this time, I heard that there was Galung among the candidates for evaluation. Suddenly his face changed color slightly. To be able to serve as a judge of ratings, at least the strength must be at the forefront of the entire Silver Palace. At least top 10. Garen's record is very strong, but to say that it can rank in the top 10 of the entire Silver Palace is unconvincing. You must know that the Silver Palace, driven by Avik, includes the most powerful totem masters in the entire empire. It can be said to be the pinnacle organization that symbolizes the strength of the entire Kuwaitan people. Being able to rank among the top 10 means that now, he is nominally among the top 10 in the entire Kuwaitan, and his influence is too great. Bang! At this time, the winner was decided on the stage. The black bear actually gave birth to a thick black scale giant tail, like a crocodile tail, and hit the golden tiger's side hard, beating it until it was dying and unable to resist anymore. The totem master of the black bear was raising his hands in the air and saluting in the direction of Iwek. The new candidate, Sir Leon, wins. Now the royal family's highest technological achievement is awarded. Silver Wings, a male guard nearby announced the verdict loudly. There were also maids carrying gift trays up to the high platform. Garin sat down next to Avik, and immediately heard Avik's voice asking him, Garin, what do you think of the strength of those 2 people just now? He pondered for a moment. Judging from their age, it's pretty good to have reached the level of Type 2 elites. I just don't know which family's children actually have such great potential. He is just an heir of a small family who has just entered the capital. But since he has potential, he is the elite talent of our Kuwaitan. We will naturally train him well. Avik shook his head. The next group. Next group, the guard passed on his instructions. Soon, two more young people wearing different clothes came on stage. One person is wearing a white wig and is a woman. The other person was wearing tight black leather pants with black daggers of unknown purpose tied to them. She was also a woman. After the two came on stage, they each saluted. Then they released a white wild boar and a black vulture with red wings. The two men confronted each other on the high platform. Garin accompanied Iwek to watch the battle. He was completely uninterested in these second-type totem masters who were just ordinary totem elites. Type 2 totem masters are compared to Type 1. They already have certain special abilities, but they are not strong, there are not many types, the variety is not enough, and the natural viewing ability is not strong enough. Although there are totem masters with spells to make up for it, there are too few totem masters who can release the spells. The game went on one after another, and after 6 games, a young man who knew how to use magic appeared. But even so, Garin dozed off watching it. Don't worry, the one who comes next has something to do with you. Garin. Avik looked at him with a smile. He seemed to notice his boredom. It has something to do with me, Garin asked doubtfully. Yeah, speaking of which, this little guy's grandfather is Earl Bakesy. The Hitler family has always had a good relationship with your Terry Jones family, Avik explained. Galen immediately recalled that this Earl of Bakesy was indeed related to Vindman and was one of the relatives of the Terry Jones family in the imperial capital. When he first came to the imperial capital, the other party sent an invitation, but he didn't have time to attend. After thinking carefully in his mind, Garin smiled. Ahashia's mother is the daughter of Earl Bakesy, which means that Earl Bakesy is also the grandfather of Garin's body. According to the relationship, he should call me cousin. Avik smiled. His name is Ren Zitra, and he is the most promising totem master of this generation in the Zitra family. As the same generation, you should get closer and closer. Of course, Garin smiled slightly. Soon, Ren Zitra came on stage. He was a handsome man with the same blonde hair. He was only 20 years old and his eyes were rare purple. Wearing a slim-fitting white samurai uniform, he only wore a silver-patterned leather holster on his right shoulder. He first saluted His Majesty, and then added a separate salute to Galen. Then with a single move, a solid white owl appeared on his right shoulder. What's strange is that this owl's body is flashing with blue electric light from time to time. Garin suddenly smiled slightly. It seems that this little guy is extremely friendly to him, plus, he is the first person with a good totem momentum after taking the stage so far. Suddenly I felt a sense of identity with him. That thunder owl is obviously not an ordinary Type 2 totem. It looks good, Garin said calmly. How about you judge this game? Avik glanced at him. Is it okay? Garin was surprised. Sure. Isn't this against the rules, father? The fourth princess whispered coquettishly on the side. She glanced at Garin quickly, her eyes full of deep fear. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 419. This fourth princess belongs to the type of little beauty with a slightly plump figure. Being able to sit next to Avik, she obviously has a high status. It's okay. With Galleon's strength, there won't be any problems with just 2 Type 2 totem masters, Avik replied casually. But one of the contestants is a relative of His Excellency Garin. Is this possible? Another princess also spoke, and she was the second princess. This ice-cold beauty wearing a white lace Kerala gave a calm and faint reminder at this time. Garin glanced at the two princesses, slightly twitching his lips, but said nothing. Avik frowned slightly. I heard that Your Excellency Garin has extraordinary strength, but I didn't expect that His Majesty would be recognized by His Majesty to enter the top 10 levels of the Silver Palace. I wonder if you can let me see your true strength. This is among several nobles sitting aside. A young man in red spoke. That's Barton, the son of the Grand Duke of Kodi. A little princess next to Garin, Princess 11, explained to Garin in a low voice. This little guy, who is only 11 years old, has clever and cunning eyes. He looks like an innocent little Lolita, but in fact he has a hint of scheming. The son of the Grand Duke, Garin's eyes were a little more cautious. At this time, Avik did hear what Barton meant. This is Barton, the fifth son of Duke Kodi. You and Galen are of the same age, and you should have a lot of topics in common. So Barton, what do you mean? Glow wall, the young man in red said with a faint smile. The glow wall of the Silver Palace is the best way to prove your strength. Since His Majesty believes that Lord Garin has the top 10 abilities of the Silver Palace, it is better to let Your Excellency show off and open up all of our eyes. Iwek was obviously very tolerant of this Barton, and he was obviously a little wary of the Grand Duke Kodi behind him. Yes, as long as the top 10 marks are left on the glow wall, we will naturally be convinced of Lord Garin's strength, the second princess agreed. Glow wall, Garin was a little confused. The little lowly 11 princess took the initiative to explain to him again. The glow wall is a secret treasure used by the Silver Palace to test the maximum destructive power. It has indestructible properties. Only those who reach the top 100 of the Silver Palace can leave traces on it. Different strengths will leave different traces with different depths. Is it a test of strength? Garin suddenly wondered. Yes. The strongest masters in the entire empire were invited by my father to be tested. There are still traces of their testing on it. You can definitely test your strength level in the entire empire on it. The 11th princess smiled. Explain. That's fine. I'll just go and try it. Iwek is also a decisive person and immediately suspended the game. Okay, let's go to the glow wall to see how powerful the rumored 9-headed dragon is. Compared with ordinary totem master competitions, the action of a top powerhouse like Garin is naturally more worth watching, and the princes and princesses suddenly became interested. Barton and the others had a hint of expectation in their eyes. The group of people stood up immediately, and the competition personnel took a break. Avik led everyone to another empty field. In the middle of the field, there stood a high white jade-like square wall with many pits and pits on it. I don't know how many strong men left their marks on it. This wall looks like a very ordinary high wall, more than 5 meters high and 4 meters wide. There are still traces of damage on some edges. It is obviously a wall left behind by a dilapidated building. When Garin and others arrived, several people were bombarding them desperately in front of the high wall. The halo of 2 of them flickered, and they were actually in a state of aura merging into one for a short period of time. Seeing His Majesty coming, these people immediately put away their totems and saluted Iwek respectfully. Welcome, Your Majesty. Stay back for now, I want to use the glow wall. Avik waved his hand. Yes. These people seemed to be non-commissioned officers in the palace. Without any hesitation, they quickly left the place and vacated their positions. Under the attention of everyone, Garin stepped forward, stood in front of the white glow wall, and carefully looked at the traces on it. As soon as he saw the marks on it, his heart trembled slightly. These traces automatically lined up in a neat row from top to bottom. From deep to shallow, it is extremely orderly. This is the magic of the glow wall. As long as you attack any wall and leave a trace, the trace will automatically be transferred to this arrangement by the wall. From deep to shallow, naturally, the strength will change. The difference is revealed, Avik explained loudly. And this wall only records the top 100 strongest people. If the attack traces cannot even reach the 100th place, then they will not be displayed on it. It's really amazing. Garin nodded in admiration. The three powerful men of the empire have all left their strongest marks on it. Now it's up to you, Avik smiled. Someone, send me the list. Immediately, a guard sent a list scroll to Garin. He unfolded it and saw that it contained the owner's information recording these traces. The first one is the deepest, enough for a thumb to go in, and it was left by White Nok, the Grand Duke of the Empire. Bai Nok is Bai Ian's grandfather. He is a terrifying fertility machine who builds up a family by one person. He has 20 sons and 16 daughters. The descendants of his sons and the descendants of his daughters continue to flourish, forming a huge family. Bai Lan is considered to be a relatively favored group among his grandchildren. The second path is that of Defense Minister Veska, which is only slightly shallower than White Nok. The third lane is an unfamiliar name, Joe Base Allen. Never heard of it at all. Next, the fourth is another Grand Duke Cody. The fifth trace behind is Aiden, the captain of the Royal Guard. The next ones are all marquis nobles, and all their names are relatively unfamiliar. Garin stopped looking at it and put down the list and gave it to the guard at the side. Can we start? Avik asked loudly. Of course, Garin smiled, and a gust of wind suddenly spread from his body, causing the clothes of the people around him to bulge slightly. Everyone retreat 100 meters away, Avik ordered loudly, leading the guards to retreat first. The princes and princesses stood behind their personal guards and retreated 100 meters away. Barton, the Grand Duke's son's expression remained unchanged, but he only retreated 50 meters. Two old men with red beards around him protected him on the left and right. Tell me, where does this person's strength rank on the wall? Barton asked in a low voice. It should be more than 30, no more than 25, an old man replied in a low voice. How confident are you two if you confront him? Barton's eyes flashed slightly and he continued to ask. The nine-headed dragon is not very strong according to the records. It is ranked 137th in the ultimate totem. Even if this person has extremely strong melee capabilities, it is not difficult to deal with him. I am enough, the old man with a longer beard replied proudly. Barton nodded slowly. In the duel between Type 4 and even Type 5 experts, the totems are basically not released to fight alone, but more often the totem masters fight on their own. At this time, the totem masters have twice the defense of the totems, and they also have, and it has the same powerful lethality as a totem. Like us, he has extremely strong physical strength. At this age, he is already very powerful, the red-bearded old man explained. A trace of regret appeared on Barton's face. It's a pity that he chose the wrong totem. Kyuzurio's potential is not enough. It has reached its limit at this level. Isn't it better this way? Hidden and we have never been very good at learning mathematics. He has reached this level at such an age. If he doesn't choose the wrong core totem, the future development will be too scary. When he changes the core, it will be terrible again. I don't know how many years have passed. Barton nodded and stopped talking. At this time, the surrounding guards and maidens had already hid further away, for fear of being hit by the aftermath. Garin stood in front of the high wall. After looking around, he saw everyone retreating. He smiled. The three-point mark between the eyebrows suddenly glowed with blood. Translucent red lizard dragon heads began to appear faintly in the air around him. There were 9 ferocious dragon heads twisting and roaring. Call. A huge aura suddenly spread in all directions. Like a hurricane, it blew everyone around him and took a few steps back. The two old men in front of Barton raised one hand and shaped a round light blue film, blocking the strong wind like a glass wall. The clothes of the people around him were constantly being blown away. Although Barton had seen the moves of Type 4 strong men many times, such a young face and such strong strength still made him feel jealous and envious. Color. At this time, Garin in the field raised his right hand, and 9 pale red lizard dragon heads turned into 9 blood-red shadows, wrapping around his arm. Buzz. A subtle vibration slowly spread from Garen's body. A force as thick as plasma slowly spread along his feet and towards the surroundings. Barton didn't feel anything. He couldn't see this plasma-like vigor, but the expressions of the other two old men suddenly changed dramatically. One person stretched out a hand, grabbed him and backed away 50 meters. Barton looked puzzled and was about to ask. "But I don't know why, but I feel that I have difficulty breathing and can't speak." "I can't believe it." The bearded old man stared at Garen in the field with shock. "His physical strength has actually reached this level." "Brother," another old man said, his face also full of lingering fear after being extremely surprised. "Is he really that kind of person?" The long-bearded old man nodded slowly. "Master Barton, you must never provoke that Garen again. Try to avoid a direct conflict with him." "Why?" "This person's cruelty has reached an extreme level. As a totem master, he actually practices martial arts fighting skills that most people find extremely difficult, and he actually trains this fighting skills to such a terrifying level. In this way people's aspirations have reached an unpredictable level. No wonder he was able to escape from the hands of Shinaun's clone." The other person had completely revealed his understanding. "I once saw a totem master like this who was proficient in extremely powerful fighting techniques. After reaching the level of a high-end totem master, he combined fighting techniques and totems into one, reaching an extremely powerful level. His endurance is close to infinite. The grasp of the battle situation is extremely acute. If someone of the same rank wants to kill such a person, it is simply an impossible task." Barton's expression was unusually solemn. This was the first time he heard the two old men beside him speak in such a serious tone. Such a person has a strong survivability, coupled with the strong survivability of the nine-headed demon dragon. The old man's tone became more and more fearful. At this moment, a black and red mist suddenly rose in the field. It shrouded Garen's figure. Roar! The ferocious image of a nine-headed lizard dragon floats faintly in the mist. Finally, countless black and red mist quickly gathered and condensed into the palm of Garen's hand. With a smile on his face, he gently reached out his right hand and pressed it on the wall. The power of the totem nine-headed dragon is the strongest killing ability, and the other abilities are only to assist recovery. The strongest point of the nine-headed demon dragon is its terrifying physical power. Therefore, the power of the nine-headed demon dragon is superimposed on the power of Galleon itself, plus the bonus of the ring troll's grip. This is Garen's most powerful attack. But now, Garen has used at least half of his strength. The pure and terrifying force slammed into the glowing wall. Crack! Without any warning, Garen's feet suddenly sank. A huge hemispheric concave surface was formed, and countless gravel dust formed a whirlwind and blew away in all directions. However, there was not much sound where the palm hit the wall. Just a slight sound. Snapped. After the evolution of nine-headed dragon, Garen's most powerful method is actually pure power. No matter the bite of life or the corrosion of poisonous mist, it is far less terrifying than the simple huge force. Just half the power. Even he himself is quite looking forward to what level his true power can reach in the imperial capital where many masters gather. Withdrawing his palm, Garen looked at the wall with a hint of expectation. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 420. The sunken palm print slowly recovered, and the wall became its original smoothness again. And in the arrangement of traces on one side, there is a clear trace. The location where the trace appeared was at the 9th position from top to bottom, directly squeezing the original 9th position down. 9th, Garen's eyes showed a hint of surprise at this moment. He stretched out his hand and gently touched the 9th mark of his own. The depth was not much different from the 8th mark above, but continuing up, it was much worse than the 7th mark. But he thought he could do it even though he hid half of his power. Touching the 5th one again, Garen's heart felt a little heavy in comparison. Obviously this person didn't use his full strength, but the traces left behind were still much deeper than what he expected. This means that the opponent's full destructive power is much stronger than his. Starting from 5th, the 4 above are far more destructive than him. Although the strength of the 9-headed dragon is not its destructive power, the result was beyond Garen's expectations. This means that there are at least 5 people in the entire Kuwaitan who are more lethal than him. Chief of the Royal Guards Aiden, he read out the 5th name. Yes, Ai Ding is the master of the Silver Palace. Iwek came behind Garen at some point. Golan, you've exceeded my expectations by reaching 9th place. It's amazing that you can reach such a high level at this age. Your Majesty is overly complimentary. Garen smiled slightly, took 2 steps back, and fell behind Avik. In any case, he is a well-known royalist, so we still need to pay attention to this basic etiquette. Ai Ding, like you, is also my most powerful arm. You are like my right and left hands, and Veska is my back. With you, the empire can be truly stable and healthy. Iwek meant something. Pointing said. Garen was slightly startled, not because of Avik's closeness at this time, but because he did not mention Princess de Lucy in his words, which surprised him. De Lucy's talent was unparalleled and he saved a lot of losses for the empire. It has always been known as the arm of Avik. But at this moment, he was directly ignored. He understood the meaning of Iwek's words. If he saw the opportunity enough, then from now on, his position would be the same as Ai Ding's, rising to the height of his left and right hands. With his heart changing rapidly, Garen saluted directly to Avik without any hesitation. It is the honor and mission of the Terry Jones family to serve His Majesty. My father and I will be loyal to the Empire from beginning to end. Garen lowered his head and answered. Speaking of his father Vindman, Avik couldn't help but sigh. You Terry Jones family are all great. When the princes and princesses who followed around heard this, their eyes flickered. By the way, I forgot to tell you. Your count's document has come down to inform the entire empire. From today on, the Terry Jones family's territory will have another piece of grassland. And you, I, am a new member of Kuwaitan. The Earl Avik patted Garen on the shoulder. Thank you, Your Majesty. Garen was overjoyed and immediately saluted again. Avik smiled and took out a purple gold badge and placed it in Garen's hand. This is the purple and gold coat of arms of the palace. It can control the elite black fire guards in the palace. This is an elite force responsible for the safety of the entire palace. Unlike the royal guards, this is a powerful force composed entirely of elite totem masters. The number of people not much, with a simple structure, but powerful strength. I want to hand him over to the most worthy person. Lord Garen, are you willing to take over this responsibility? When he said this last sentence, his tone suddenly became high-pitched. Your Majesty is willing, Garen replied loudly. Okay. My safety, and the safety of the entire royal family, is entrusted to you. Avik hugged Garen heavily. The 11th princess not far away was biting her lips. Sure enough, my judgment was correct. This situation is going to be difficult. Avik handed over the black fire guards to the 9-headed demon dragon. The royal guards have Ai Ding. This situation is not an ordinary trouble. Tina, Avik's voice came from the front. The 11th princess was startled and immediately realized what she was doing. Here. Father, she quickly stepped forward and curtsied. What are your orders? Aren't you going out to play? You can ask Mr. Gallen to arrange any outings in the future. The palace I arranged for him is not far from your palace. Avik looked at the little guy with a smile. Dels, Andy. You all come here to meet the new master of the Black Fire Palace. Avik then called the other princes and princesses he valued most to come over. Dales is the frosty second princess. Andy is a pale young prince. The 11th princess Tina lowered her head. She could feel Iwek's disgusting gaze wandering over her body like a cold snake. She knew that this was a sign that Avik was attracted to her. After raising her for so many years, this emperor with a human face and an animal heart finally couldn't hold himself back. She suddenly felt a chill in her heart. She was usually the least favored one, but now, she was the first one Iwek called. Also, the benefits of his palace have been greatly improved recently, and more people are flattering and complimenting him. Tina, who was only 11 years old, understood that all this was a clear sign that she was about to be favored by Avik. It was originally thought that Ai Ding had something to do and left, and that there was a chance to escape from the palace temporarily. Unexpectedly, there was another Galung. She had long heard of Galen's reputation, or rather the Terry Jones family's reputation. Garen's father Vindman is a die-hard royalist. Although he has a notorious reputation, no one dares to touch him. Even with this reputation, his son Garen was even more vicious. Legend has it that the 9-headed demon dragon ate 10 virgins and 20 children every day. Sometimes when I get upset, even the elderly will not be spared. Wherever he passed, there would be rivers of blood. His favorite hobby is collecting human hearts. In the past, the Imperial City Prison would send hundreds of prisoners to him every month just so that he could select fresh hearts. Thinking of these rumors, the 11th Princess Tina's heart beat heavily. It would be great if Xian and the others were here. This thought came to her mind more than once, and a feeling of weakness and helplessness that she wanted to find someone to rely on kept pouring out of her heart. Garen's body trembled slightly when he heard the name Tina. He carefully found the 11th Princess Tina among the princesses. It was the little guy with cunning eyes who explained to himself just now. He had a sweet and cute appearance, a slim and delicate figure, and the girl's slender waist was wrapped in a white lace dress. Her slender legs were wearing long white stockings, and a silver butterfly ornament was stuck in the black ponytail on her back. Tina's skin was white and rosy, with no blemishes at all. She looked like a delicate snow doll. Garen glanced at Iwek, and sure enough, there was a faint animalistic desire flashing in this woman's eyes. But for some reason, Avik seemed to be strongly suppressing this desire. His eyes stayed on Tina for a moment, and then quickly moved away. Blinking, he was replaced by an inexplicable determination, as if he had made some important decision at this moment. From now on, Count Garen will be the new master of the Black Fire Palace. The Terry Jones family has made great contributions to our Kuwaitan. From now on, you must treat each other as your elders. Do you understand? Avik unexpectedly said these words come. Not only Galen, but also Barton and the princes and princesses around him all showed expressions of astonishment. Okay, I'm tired. Let's go back to the palace to rest. Someone is here. Here, a guard immediately ran over and answered loudly. Take the Earl to the Black Fire Palace. Get to know his new subordinates. Avik patted Garen on the shoulder without any explanation, arranged the next affairs, and left voluntarily. Best farewell to your majesty, father. Everyone saluted at the same time and watched Iwek go away. Garen straightened up, glanced at everyone, and his eyes stayed on the 11th Princess Tina for a few seconds longer. Tina, he suddenly recalled in his mind the people who appeared behind Baker's stone eyes in the original history. The face of one of the girls was extremely similar to the Tina in front of her. Coincidentally, that girl also has a noble manner, elegant temperament, and royal style in every move she makes. She is not something that ordinary nobles can cultivate. Now it seems that this Tina. However, Baker Stone Eyes and his team should still be at Marquis Blacksnake's place now, and they won't be here so soon. Even if she is really that girl, she probably still doesn't recognize Baker Stone Eyes at all, right? Garen thought about it again and felt relieved again. As soon as Avik left, the second princess snorted and left. Barton followed closely behind, just smiled at Garen, and left without saying anything more. The other princes and princesses looked at each other in confusion. The 12th princess was a cutie who was only 7 or 8 years old. Her long platinum hair was neatly combed. She was wearing a black silk skirt and little leather boots. She was the first to walk up to Garin. "Uncle Garin, Avril has to leave first." There was the first one, then the second, then the third. These princes and princesses resigned towards Garin one after another. Tina glanced at the fourth princess, who bit her lower lip and turned blue. Just when Avik left without her, everyone saw clearly that she was tired of being played by Avik. The change of attitude so quickly may not be related to the fourth princess's bad attitude towards Garin just now. Suddenly all the princes and princesses had plans in mind. Tina was the last to walk up to Garin. "Uncle Garin, please take good care of me in the future. My 11th princess palace is right next to your Black Fire Palace." She tried her best to look cute and pure, and gave her a sweet smile. "Your Highness, you're welcome. Garin will do his best to protect your safety." Garin was smiling, with his handsome face and beautiful blonde hair. Even Tina couldn't help but be dazzled by it. But when she thought of the rumors she had heard, she suddenly shuddered and didn't dare to look anymore, lowering her head. The last four princesses came over with a pale face and bowed to Garin. "Uncle Garin." Tina had already walked away at this time. She turned back to look at the fourth princess. The eyes of this previously unruly fourth sister were now filled with tears, which seemed to be about to fall at any time. She was whispering something to Garin, but they were far away and she couldn't hear them clearly. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 421. 2 days later, Avik actually announced that the ceremony and audience would be postponed. On the way back to her palace, Tina saw many guards and maids whispering. She had just come back from the bath, and when she returned to the gate of her palace, she saw her personal maid Shui Ping chatting quietly with a maid in a white skirt. The two of them were so focused that they didn't notice their arrival at all. "Water bottle." Aquarius immediately shuddered and ran towards Tina. The other maid ran away as if fleeing. "What are you talking about?" Tina's face actually had a hint of sternness. "Your Highness, there is nothing to talk about." Shui Ping'er was so frightened that her face turned pale and she couldn't speak clearly. Tina snorted and walked into her palace with her little hands behind her back. She actually knew what these people were talking about. Recently, due to the new appointment of the Lord of the Black Fire Palace, Garin, the palace has undergone a major defense change. Most of the places originally guarded by the royal guards have been replaced by the Black Fire Heavy Guards. These heavy guards seemed like emotionless beasts, never speaking or chatting. He only knows how to fulfill his duties loyally, and does not listen to anyone else's orders except for the words of Black Fire Palace Lord Garin and His Majesty. Recently, some rumors have been circulating in the palace. It is said that the disappearance of the third princess is related to the newly appointed Count Garan. Tina did not comment on this rumor at all. But she knew in her heart that the death of her third sister was indeed closely related to Count Garan. She had heard the quarrel between the second sister and the eldest sister, including the results of the investigation into Earl Garan. The third princess indeed died in the Count's mansion. But what is chilling is that after receiving the results of the death of the third princess who was favored by His Majesty at the time, his father Ivik actually did not take any action at all. There was no punishment for Garin, and the incident gradually faded away as if it had not happened. It was from that day that Tina gradually matured, and then she realized that her father's eyes on her were becoming more and more wrong. Living in such a heavily guarded palace, she felt like a canary in a birdcage, unable to do anything and afraid to do anything. Tina walked into her bedroom, closed the door, came to the window and was about to open the curtains, when suddenly faint voices came from below. She stopped immediately. The chief guard of Jiexu in the second palace was executed. Isn't Captain Jiexu the most trusted guard of the second princess? Who told the captain of the guard to offend the earl? In front of His Majesty the voice gradually became darker. But Tina knew that the people in the palace were deeply scheming. These words were not simply heard by chance, but were deliberately leaked to her by the people in her own palace. They were afraid of the newly appointed Earl of Garan. They were afraid that they would accidentally offend the new Earl. They thought they didn't understand. But they actually knew everything. This Black Fire Palace master is cruel and ruthless. On the surface, he is very respectful to the princes and princesses, but he is extremely vicious when he attacks. The head guard of Jiangsu and the second princess were sisters, but they were killed with a knife this morning. A chill filled Tina's heart. This was because the danger was approaching. Among the royal bloodline, she and 12 had the strongest premonition ability, but now, this premonition ability started to warn again, but she was unable to do anything. She knew that danger was approaching, but she couldn't escape. Only 2 days after taking office, Count Garan carried out a large-scale cleaning operation. With the full authorization of Avik, the heavy guards of the Black Fire Palace are distributed throughout the palace like a spider web. The palace of any prince or princess is monitored by the Black Fire Guards. All the Black Fire Guards formed an extremely powerful sealed network with Iwek's palace as the center. Tina was shocked to discover that some of the blind spots that the totem powerhouse had never thought of. The loopholes that she used to take advantage of when going out were all filled up by the Black Fire Guards. The entire palace became more and more like an airtight iron barrel, which made her unable to breathe. Stone Eyes and the others should be coming soon, but in this environment, there is not just the Garland Sword Aiden, but also the 9-headed dragon Galleon. Tina gritted her teeth. We have to find a way. The assassination was not carried out as Garan expected, but the trust ceremony seemed to have been delayed. Avik planned to meet the Black Prince alone, splitting the original plan and splitting the ceremony and audience into 2 parts. After Garan took over as the Lord of the Black Fire Palace, he hinted to Avik many times that there might be problems with the trust ritual. But he did not identify Delucy, but said that he discovered that the trust ritual may be subject to external interference. Avik was originally a suspicious person. After receiving Garen's hint and his extraordinary trust in Garen, with his support and acquiescence, he immediately launched a large-scale cleaning campaign in the Deep Palace. Don't seek no merit but seek no fault. With this attitude, the palace became increasingly heavily guarded. Under Garen's guard, Ivik was accompanied by Eden, and met secretly with the Black Prince 5 days later, reaching a series of consensuses. The Black Prince quickly left the capital after the meeting. Although Garen did not meet one of the famous 3 heroes, there is no doubt that his involvement changed the original course of history. The Black Prince is no longer responsible for assassinating the king, and Black Sky Society's plan has failed in half. A week later. King's study. Avik and Garen Eden sat facing each other. The 3 of them are playing a 3-person chess game called Nora. This game is a bit like checkers, and the test is to see who can reach the predetermined endpoint first. However, the chess pieces in the middle can eat each other. But phagocytosis must meet certain conditions. Just like chess pieces, there are differences in status and ability. Iwek was wearing white casual clothes, with a calm face and a smile, and he was far ahead. Garen and Aiden are both black trench coats, but the colors of the edges of the clothes are different, one is dark red, and the other is white and silver. The 2 of them were playing chess pieces equally calmly at this time. Among the 3, Ivik was far ahead, with Garen second and Aiden third. Although he was at the end, Aiding did not move at all, and his movements remained smooth and steady. Compared with this imperial genius in his 30s, Garen's personality is much more normal. The pale morning sunlight shines in from the back of Avik and falls on the edge of the white chessboard, reflecting a faint white light. The 3 of them concentrated on playing chess. Snapped. Garen gently put down one of his chess pieces and glanced at Ivik. Now he really admires this emperor. Just as an ordinary person, he actually surpassed the 2 of them in chess. Such scheming is indeed worthy of a monarch of a country as big as Khawatan. After taking charge of the Black Fire Palace, the more he got to know him, the more he felt that Avik was not as ignorant of the crisis as he imagined. He seemed to be playing a huge chess game. There are many things that even a top totem master like him cannot see clearly. Nala, Garen, and Aiden all failed to save their strength. Not only did they save their strength, but even if they slacked off a little bit, their important chess pieces would be completely swallowed up by Avik. Garen, how do you handle the Black Fire Palace? Is it no big problem? Avik asked calmly while playing chess. Garen smiled. Since you have handed over the current Black Fire guards to me, that is your trust in me. Your trust in my Terry Jones family. Therefore, even if there is a problem, it is not a problem. The Black Fire Heavy Guard's true identity is actually the product of the green vine ball developed by Vineman. If these heavy guards were under the command of outsiders, they would only be able to exert half of their strength. But under Garen's command, the green vine ball was originally a personal mutation totem created by Vineman for Garen. In other words, it is no longer a totem, but a crystallized scientific product. So the living experimental product Blackfire Heavy Guard created with its parasitic core is naturally a power that only Garen can fully master. In addition, the Terry Jones family has always been a well-known royalist, so Avik completely let go and handed over the Black Fire Palace to Garen. Originally, Avik had already had this plan after discovering the characteristics of the green vine ball when the Black Fire Heavy Guard was created. The creation of the Black Fire Heavy Guards was a new and powerful addition to the Empire. The total number of these Heavy Guards was only 200, but they were all living dead who had been heavily transformed and possessed Type 2 elite strength. They have no feelings and are only loyal to Garen, the owner of the green vine ball. Before the R/U0026D department develops a method to dismantle this single loyalty mechanism, the only person who can master the Black Fire Palace is Galleon. This is the conclusion that Avik has come to after trying many times. Garen, your father Vineman died for the royal family. I have always felt guilty. But if he sees that you are now called the pillar of the country, he will probably be proud of you. So if something goes wrong in the palace you can do whatever you want, Avik said lightly. No matter what, I believe you and I will always be on the same side. Garen's face twitched. It would be strange not to stand on one side. The Terry Jones family has a grudge against the Black Sky Society, and an even greater grudge against the Daihua Society. The only force that can cling to it is the royal family. He glanced at Ai Ding aside. Eden, Vesca, and the two Grand Dukes were the only four people in the imperial capital that he could fear. Of course, this does not include the old monster that may be hidden inside the palace. According to Garen's speculation, these four people should all be stronger than him, and they should all hold important positions in the three major organizations. Perhaps he is simply one of the top figures in the three major organizations. It's said that Mr. Vesca has gone back to the mathematics department and needs to deal with some troublesome matters for the time being, Ai Ding suddenly said without thinking. That's right. After waiting for so long, maybe they should take action. Avik nodded and said something vague. After waiting for so long, if we delay it any longer, we will be in vain. Garen narrowed his eyes slightly. It seems that His Majesty is well prepared. I didn't want to do this originally, Avik sighed. But no one would have thought that the person who betrayed me was actually the person I trusted the most. Garen's heart trembled. He indeed knew. What does Your Majesty mean? At that time, the safety of the palace will depend entirely on you. Avik didn't say much, but he was obviously ready to take action officially. There seemed to be a trace of exhaustion and sadness on his face. Obviously, he still can't bear to do something to the people who have been with him for so many years. Garen's mind was filled with thoughts. Since Avik already knew it, how did the assassination succeed? Suddenly, he became more and more interested in Delucy from Black Sky Society. But unfortunately, Delucy still hasn't met him for so long. In a daze, he thought of the 11th Princess Tina, and Baker Stone Eyes and his group. Perhaps, this matter may also have something to do with them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 422. After leaving the palace study, Garen headed to the Blackfire Palace under the protection of 4 Blackfire guards. The Blackfire Palace is a dark palace with dark red patterns carved on it. Viewed from above, it looks like a standard triangle, surrounded by dark red columns. Different huge black symbols are engraved on the columns. I don't know what they mean. Opposite the Blackfire Palace is the 11th Palace of the 11 Princesses, and the two stand opposite each other. Garen left the office area, walked through the public area, and walked directly onto the small stone bridge leading to the Blackfire Palace. 4 Blackfire heavy guards followed behind him, all wearing thick black cloaks, giving people a cold and forbidding feeling. The maid guards passing by all saluted him in awe. Before entering the Blackfire Palace, you have to pass through the 11th Palace. It was early in the morning, and in the open-air corridor in front of the 11th Palace, a maid in red was leading a young man towards the 11th Palace. The man's face was calm, but there was a hint of anxiety in his eyes. He looked unattractive, but the contrast between his face and his eyes gave people a strange sense of incongruity. When Garen passed outside the corridor, he suddenly glanced at the maid and the man she was bringing from a distance. The maid was currently bending down to salute from a distance, and even the man had to bend down to salute. Who is that person? Garen stopped and asked a guard beside him. Sir, that person is a guest who came to see the 11th princess. He is a commoner outside. The male guard was also startled by Garen's sudden voice and quickly answered. The man who came to meet His Highness 11, Garen frowned, thinking of his previous guess. Let him go. But, that person is the person His Highness 11th has personally specified that he wants to see. This guard was a little embarrassed. He was a guard guarding the 11th palace. He had already known from the tone of His Highness's instructions that this person was very important to His Highness. Has he been here many times? Garen suddenly asked. Yes, the guard nodded awkwardly. This person will not be allowed to enter the palace without my order from now on. Jia Long said a word and strode away directly. The heavy armors of the 4 black fire guards trampled on the ground, giving people a dull power. Snapped. Wow. 11th Princess Tina slammed a vase on the ground. Go to hell. Die. Tina locked herself in the study alone and smashed everything in the soundproof study into a mess. I'm so angry. Damn Garen. Damn Blackfire Palace. What does it have to do with who I want to see? The floor was littered with fragments of porcelain and crystal, and the whole room was in disarray. She didn't dare to make any noise outside. There are heavy Blackfire guards outside the palace. Recently, there was an order from the Lord of the Blackfire Palace. She is not allowed to go out at will. If she needs to go out, she must ask Garen for instructions. This made Tina tremble with anger even more. The Baker Stone Eyes person she wanted to summon could not be seen, and now she was actually under house arrest in her own palace. But she had no place to appeal. In the heart of his father, Ivik, 10 princesses are no match for one right-hand man, not to mention that Garen is also one of the Empire's top masters and top totem masters. Not to mention house arrest. Even if Garen fell in love with him, Ivik would probably marry him directly without saying a word. After venting, Tina finally began to calm down. What should I do now? I can't even get out of the palace, and they can't get in. If I want to escape from here, I have to find another way. In just a few weeks, the reputation of the 9-headed demon dragon Garen gradually became famous throughout the imperial capital. Together with Garland's sword Aiden, they are the 2 strongest generals under Avik. Of course, in the eyes of outsiders and the enemy, the two of them are of X2 most loyal eagle dogs. Perhaps the status is much higher than that of an eagle dog, but there is no doubt that this is the function. Although Ai Ding is a genius and powerful, he does not care about management and is not good at it. Garen was different, he firmly held the power in his own hands. His black fire guardian god is mysterious and powerful, and his black fire giant wolf is extremely ferocious. Coupled with the powerful equipment made by the royal family, each black fire heavy guard has the strength to challenge two totem masters of the same level. Anyone who wants to target Iwek must first pass through the two lines of defense of Eden and Garen. Another week later. Inside the Palace of Black Fire. Garen walked into the side hall on the left side of the palace hall and came to a small room. The door of the small black room was open, and a young man with a black ponytail was sitting inside. Seeing Garen come in, the young man stood up immediately with a smile on his face. "Garen, are you done with your work today? Didn't you go to your grandfather's place?" Garen walked over and sat across from the young man. There was a low table between the two of them, with two steaming cups of hot black tea on it. There was a faint aroma of black tea floating in the small room. This young man is Bailan, whom he hasn't seen for a long time. This guy who grew up with Ahashia got in touch with Garen a few days ago. Garen goes to visit Balan's grandfather Banuk. Of course, the main purpose is to visit my friend Bailan. This guy is not living an ordinary life now. Although he does not have the qualifications of a totem master, he has a grandfather who likes him, and his family naturally cares about him. In addition, Garen's visit expressed his stance. His current status in the entire family has skyrocketed. Although he cannot be called a successor, he is at least very important. My grandpa went out hunting. The weather has been good recently. It has been sunny for many days in a row. Grandpa got very excited and went out on horseback. Bailan shook her head. "It's a pity that I am not a totem master, otherwise I would also like to see it. Come to see me so early. Is there something urgent?" Garen picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea. "That's not true, it's just that I plan to marry Marlene," Bailan said with a smile. This guy is more mature than before. "What about Andalou?" Garen looked like he had expected it and was not surprised at all. "Andalou's family is in some trouble. Most of her family members were attacked and died by monsters. Only she and her aunt are left in the family. The last few times I have invited her out to play, it has become more and more boring," Bailan said with a frown. "The four of them have had the best relationship since childhood, but now due to the turmoil, they have experienced ups and downs in their lives. If Garen hadn't worked hard on his own, his family would probably be in ruins now. Even if he survived, he would be in a similar situation to Andalou. Although Baiyan's family was powerful, at that time, with his power and influence, being able to send people to pick up his friends was the limit of what he could do. Help her as much as you can," Garen sighed. "So I'm here this time," Bailan nodded. "Xiaolu plans to go to the palace to find something to do, so that she can be self-reliant and not burden her aunt. See if you can find something for him." Into the palace, Garen frowned. "It's not that I don't want to, it's actually just a matter of my words. But as a good friend, I really don't want her to enter the palace now." Balin paused, looking slightly thoughtful. Garen continued. "It will take a while. I will tell her after a while. There should be no problem with the palace manager." "Exactly how long will it take? You know that if it was just a general position, I wouldn't bother coming to you." "I can handle it myself." Bailan raised her eyebrows. "Needless to say, it's definitely not an ordinary location," Garen laughed. "She said she'd better enter the palace as soon as possible." "The sooner the better. Being idle at home is idle anyway." Bailan shook her head. "The situation in her family is very bad now. Even if we are there to greet her, she is not as strong as herself. You know the basis of this. After all, many things are disputes within the family, and we are just outsiders. Garin immediately understood what he meant. Endalu must have lost all his relatives, and his distant relatives wanted to come over to divide the property. According to formal laws, this is natural. But how to divide this? There is a lot of room for manipulation. She is in urgent need of a relatively good position. At least she must have a certain amount of power and influence in her hands so that she can suppress the greedy wolves in the family. I can understand her difficulties, so I still think it's best to arrange for her to enter the palace as soon as possible, Bailan whispered, picking up the black tea, rubbing the teacup against her lips, but she didn't drink much, just blew it gently. Then what position does she want most? Garin pondered for a moment, and finally spoke. He knew that Endalu was embarrassed to come to see these old friends, and only Marin still had a close relationship with her. Since he could beg for help, it was Bailan who took the initiative. Obviously the situation has reached a more troublesome point. It's better not to involve a few layers before coming to find yourself. From what she said, she hopes to find a job suitable for women, Bailan replied. Garin nodded slowly. The only jobs suitable for women are the palace finance department, horticulture department, and the Queen's palace. Since my friend is joining the palace, the position cannot be too bad. He thought for a while and said, in this way, I will give her 3 positions: Deputy Financial Director, Flower Director of the Horticulture Department, and Maid of the Royal Palace. I can decide which position she wants from these 3 positions. Okay. Then I'll go back and tell her. Bailan stood up happily. He knew that it was very interesting for Garin to clearly lay out 3 positions for Endalu to choose from. After all, he is not the only one in charge of the palace, there is also the Silver Palace, the eldest princess, and His Majesty. Nor could he reach higher. In such a hurry to go back. Why don't you sit down for a while? Garin said with a smile. No, Malin and Xiaolu are still waiting for my news. If anything happens in the future, can't I just ask them to come to me directly? We are all old friends, why should they be so out of touch? Garin frowned. It's not that your identity is different now. Last time, Malin planned to bring Xiaolu to find you, but she just glanced at you from afar and didn't dare to come up to talk to you. You were scared to death, Bailan said angrily. With your usual aura, you look like you will die if you mess with me. Who dares to say hello to you rashly? No way. Am I so cruel? Garin touched his chin, looking confused. You must bring 4 elite black cloaks with you when you go out, and a 2-meter-tall heavy armor. The master of the Black Fire Palace can scare people to death even if he smiles. Bailan shook his head and was speechless. Do you know what is being said about you outside? What words? You say you eat 10 virgins alive every day, and you like to collect the hearts of strong men the most. When you are unhappy, you can glare at people with just one look. Your arms are as thick as a human waist, and your thighs cannot be hugged by anyone. Your teeth can bite through steel plates in one bite. Stop, stop. Seeing that Bailan was getting more and more outrageous, Garin had a dark look on his face and quickly stopped him. Who spread this news? Bailan shook her head. I don't know. Anyway, it just came out like this. To tell the truth about some of your recent things, it is true. He glanced at Garin's face and hesitated to continue. It's just that we killed a few more people, and these people spread rumors. Garin narrowed his eyes slightly. Bailan was speechless. Just how many people were killed? The 4th princess couldn't clearly see the situation when the Black Fire Guards were patrolling, and fought against Garin for a close guard. Later, he actually revealed his identity and said that he was just a dog of the royal family and a servant. As a result, the Black Fire Guards killed everyone in the Princess Palace except the 4 princesses. A total of 96 people were hanged overnight. There is not even a maid serving tea in the entire 4th palace. That's it. Avik actually asked the 4th princess to apologize to Garin in public. Not only this, but during the recent purge operations, anyone who was suspected by the Black Fire Guards would almost die. In the name of investigating spies, the Black Fire Guards cleaned up the entire palace. Anyone who dissent was directly executed by Galen. The number of executions has risen to more than 300 people. For the always peaceful and peaceful imperial capital, Garen has undoubtedly become an out-and-out butcher. Executioner. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 423. The Minister of Defense, Veska, was away, the royal guard chief Aiden was staying at the Silver Palace, the princess was still preparing for the ceremony, and Avik completely delegated power to Garen. The entire royal capital and palace were almost in the hands of Garen alone. In fact, this is Garen purging the Black Sky Society spies in the entire palace based on the historical scenes he saw. Most of those who were cleared were the princess's eyes and ears. Just because the reasons he used were not sufficient, and he was too lazy to think of so many reasons, he just found some excuses and killed a large number of people. This resulted in his reputation getting worse and worse. But anyway, the reputation of the Terry Jones family has long been bad. After Vindman's experiments on living people were exposed, the entire family had no reputation at all. So Garen didn't bother to abide by these complicated morals. As long as nothing happens to Iwek's secret treasure, nothing will be a problem. There are many people as backup for the palace guards and maids. Now is a critical period, and we must not be lenient. We must completely cut off the princess's ears and eyes. You wouldn't know if you didn't check. After checking, Garen was shocked to find that the princess's people were everywhere in the palace. So he killed them ruthlessly and eliminated these spies of Black Sky Society. Now that Bailan said that he was actually said to be more terrifying than a demon, Garen felt dumbfounded. Don't you old friends know what I am like? It makes me so sad that you don't trust me so much. Bailan said worriedly. Actually, my grandpa also said that you are on the cusp of the storm now, and you will really be in trouble when Veska comes back. You need to prepare early. I know. Garen nodded. Okay, I'm leaving first. Those two guys are still waiting for my news. If you have time, come out and play together. It's been a long time since we got together. Bailan patted Garen on the shoulder. I send you. Jialong escorted Bailan outside the palace, and then arranged for the Black Fire Guards to escort him out of the palace before returning. It has been some time since he became the palace lord, and the Terry Jones family's property has expanded rapidly with the increase in status. A few days ago, Galen raided a highly corrupt financial official and secretly intercepted a small portion of his property, just in time to repay all the money he owed the children. In fact, Avik turned a blind eye to his methods. Even after cleaning up so many eyes and ears, Garen still didn't find out how the Black Sky Society really planned to take action. Return to the Blackfire Palace. He sat on the dark red patterned palace lord's throne, crossed his hands and fell into thought. 2 rows of Blackfire heavy guards stood on both sides of the hall. There are also subdivisions among the Blackfire guards. Generally, those who wear heavy armor are Type 2 elites, and those who wear heavy armor and cloaks are Type 3. There are a total of 200 people in the entire Blackfire Guards. In fact, their strength far exceeds that of ordinary totem masters of the same level. The most important thing is that each of them is not afraid of life and death. There are many Type 2 totem masters in the Empire, but there are too few who truly dare not fear death. Behind every totem master, there is a huge resource supply chain, and there are all large and small interest groups. When encountering life and death matters, there are absolutely very few people who will foolishly fight for their lives. But the Blackfire Heavy Guard is different. This is equivalent to the death squad of the second type elite totem master. As long as Garen gives an order, they can burst out their most powerful power at any time. In fact, even so, they are not very useful to Ivik. There are many Type 2 elite totem masters in the Imperial Totem Corps. The real reason why the black fire guards are feared is that they actually have the ability to self-destruct. And because of the green vine balls, their number can remain unchanged. If you lose one, you can immediately add another. If it weren't for the fact that the green mango ball could only control so many black fire guards, and so many self-destruction troops were created, even those with type 4 or below would not dare to confront them head-on even if they were spiritually transformed. It's a pity that these people are unconscious. Garen shook his head and sighed. It seems that I need to recruit some talents who can help me manage the palace. After calming down, he began to prepare his attire for going out. Every 2 days, he would go out to hunt monsters to increase his potential points and see when he could meet the conditions for improving the secret weapon. Perhaps the foundation of the 9-headed dragon is too large. The potential points have been accumulated for so long, and have reached more than 200 points intermittently. There is still no movement in the secret weapon. But this also made him look forward to it more and more. The more potential points needed, the greater the degree of transformation after upgrading the secret weapon. In a high-rise restaurant in the imperial capital. At the round table in the milk-white restaurant, 2 bearded men with black beards were sitting at the table, looking sideways at the huge black palace in the distance. At noon, the sky was overcast and gloomy, and the thick clouds seemed to be pressing down, making people feel depressed. 2 bearded men were sitting in the corner, ordering standard meals that were quite inconspicuous. People were coming and going around, the guests were standing up and sitting down, but no one noticed them at all. No one noticed that the 2 people's lips moved slightly, and they were secretly talking to each other using secret techniques. Is there still no way to contact 11? It's difficult. Another slightly shorter man looked confused. The most troublesome things in the palace are the Silver Palace and the Black Fire Palace. 11's palace is right next to the Black Fire Palace. It's very difficult to save her. The Hydra is extremely powerful. If he discovers anything, no, not only is the rescue impossible, but even the people who went in don't want to come out alive. So we must avoid that Hydra. To avoid him, we must avoid the Black Fire Guards. But the Black Fire Guards are everywhere, scattered in every corner of the palace. The tall man with a beard was lost in thought. Then we must first find out who enters and exits the palace so that they will not be thoroughly investigated by the Black Fire Guards. The other person's eyes suddenly lit up. Xian, do you have a solution? Let's take a look at the specific situation first. Maybe we can get some ideas. Let's first investigate the life patterns and behavioral habits of Hydra. If you want to defeat someone, understanding the other person as much as possible is the biggest foundation. Roar. The red faucet flashed away. In the barren mountain, surrounded by more than a dozen Black Fire Guards, Garen stepped on the rocky hill, with white gravel everywhere under his feet. In the open space not far away, a bowl-shaped monster with a crocodile head finally slowly fell to the ground. It was more than 6 meters tall, covered in black, and its huge neck seemed to be bitten by something, protruding outwards. The head was raised high, and the blood vessels in the erect neck were ruptured, which was bright red. A large amount of blood kept pouring out, but as soon as it came into contact with the air, it seemed as if it was swallowed by something and disappeared completely. There was only the faint sound of the giant beast swallowing in the air. The mark between Garen's left eyebrows glowed faintly with red light. As the sound of swallowing disappeared, the red light gradually faded away. Bang! The giant beast fell to the ground with a crash. The whole thing has actually lost a lot of weight. Garen took the white handkerchief given by the Black Fire Guard next to him and wiped his hands. Suddenly, there was a faint violent vibration on the ground. Who? How dare you kill my crocodile first? A huge roar came from afar. Garen smiled. This was already the Meteor Mountains far away from the imperial capital. It took him half a day to arrive here in the fastest Big Thunder Eagle. This place is outside the defense line, with dragons and snakes mixed together. There are people from all kinds of forces, big and small. The monsters are not very strong. Just right for practice. This is the north of 11 Nongfa's defense line. Compared with the south, the monsters here are much stronger. There are even 4 types of top monsters in the Meteor Mountains. And there are more than one, so even the royal family does not dare to go too deep and can only shrink the defense line. And there is a stronger area further away, with 4 types of monsters, and monsters with a spiritual level even appearing in terrifying numbers one layer after another. As a result, only top experts can enter here. One crocodile can bring 5 points of income to Galleon, which is a good return. According to previous standards, a Type 1 totem or monster can provide about 25% of the potential value, which is less than a little. A Type 2 is around 2 points and a Type 3 is around 5 points. The spiritual light level suddenly increased to about 15. This crocodile beast itself is only a Type 2 elite combat power, with rough skin and thick flesh, extremely strong strength, and strong resistance to non-physical attacks. It can actually provide an income equivalent to Type 3 totems, so Garen will never let it go if he sees one. There are many types of monsters like this with rough skin and thick flesh, but none of them are as cost-effective as crocodile. Hearing the roar, Garen put down his handkerchief and looked far ahead at the sky. Soon, a huge black shadow gradually emerged from the air in the gloomy sky. It was a huge octopus monster, with dozens of 1-meter thick tentacles waving around like long whips. The huge black octopus head was 7 or 8 meters in diameter, with a shriveled old man sitting cross-legged on top. The old man was dressed in gray, with a fierce look in his eyes. The shadow cast by the octopus beneath him directly covered Garen and the others. As you get closer, you can clearly see the head-sized suckers on the octopus's tentacles. As soon as it approached within 50 meters, the black octopus suddenly shrank, all its tentacles retracted like lightning, and its body quickly turned from black to bright red. The expression of the old man sitting on its head suddenly changed slightly. The eyes looking down at Garen and the others also became cautious. Unexpectedly, a master of the same level is here. I am Anjiad, the 3rd Tower Master of the 7 Knights Tower. I wonder what your name is. His tone immediately changed and became much more polite. 7 Knights Tower, Garen raised an eyebrow. This is the largest entrenched force in the Starfall Mountains. It is said that it was formed by a university sect and several associations that originally lived here. It is powerful and uses the powerful 7 defense tower techniques. Famous for its formation. The northern part of the defense line is getting closer and closer to the polar circle, and the temperature is getting lower and lower. It is fine here, but if you go further and cross the Starfall Mountains, it will not be a suitable environment for human habitation. The temperature can reach as low as tens of degrees below zero, and the area is covered with wind and snow all year round and has continuous glaciers. Although it is not as prosperous as the temperate zone, it also hides some unknown and secret forces. Totem masters always have many ways to transform the environment and nature, and no one knows how many powerful people are hidden in the polar circle. I have heard for a long time that the 7 Knights Tower dominates the north and is the most powerful force in the Starfall Mountains. I didn't expect that. I have only been here a dozen times and met the powerful tower owner. It is really an honor. Garen smiled. It's Garen, the Lord of the Black Fire Palace of the King of Khawaitan. Khawaitan? Is it the powerful country Khawaitan? The old man's eyes flashed and he asked doubtfully. Good. The old man's eyes suddenly flashed. The reason why he came here was actually because the crocodile he released was constantly being slaughtered by people, but he couldn't catch up with the people every time. This time he finally caught the murderer, but he didn't expect it to be from the powerful mainland country of Khawaitan. High official. Judging from the other party's appearance, it is obvious that he is not a good person. The body of the black octopus under the sea turns red, which means that the opponent has the ability to kill the black octopus at any time. He is obviously a master on the same level as himself. Looking at this person's appearance, there are so many people guarding him around. Their auras are not very strong, but they give people a lifeless and dangerous aura. If that matter could be helped by the person in front of me. The old man had a plan in mind. He didn't release the crocodile beast just to let these little guys who have been cultivated for many years run around. But it has its own important purpose. The little guy who got the treasure from the snowy mountains is well versed in hiding techniques, and has an unparalleled talent for magic formations. If he wants to catch that little guy, he only needs one manpower, and the treasures from the snowy mountains will have no effect on other outsiders. Maybe you can invite this person to help in exchange for benefits. Garen also has his own plans in mind. Now the Black Fire Palace is seriously short of manpower. If he can win over a powerful group like the Seven Knights Tower, he can greatly increase his influence and power. No matter what you do, it will be much more convenient to have high-end power that you can mobilize. The Terry Jones family is already notorious in the Empire, but no one knows about it in the outside world. If the channel and friendship can be successfully established, it will also be a huge benefit to the Terry Jones family. After all, the chaos of World War II is approaching. Even if he saves the situation on Iwek's side, there will still not be any big changes on Ennet, Shanya, and even Dongzhou. Therefore, he must continue to increase his strength and power in order to avoid being chased by the strong men of Black Sky Society and Daihua Society in the coming chaos.